Murat, thank you so much for being here. This is awesome. I've been really looking forward to this interview that we booked for some time. Well, I think you're gonna have a lot of really interesting insights for the buyer community. Um, Maybe before we kind of get into the details of kind of the questions, just share with the audience kind of the background of what Ballpark is, and more specifically the problem that you're solving with Ballpark.
So, background to Ballpark, we are a research platform, and the problem we're trying to solve is kind of more a historical one in research generally, which is that for a long time, the way research has worked is that if you wanted some insights into a problem, you had to go and ask someone else to get them and then wait. And then they could get you some answers back in a week, 2 weeks, a month, a quarter, depending on the size of the study. And we felt that was an incredibly inefficient way for people to make decisions. And now um, with the advent of AI and the velocity that teams are moving at, people who are working on product services campaigns, they need to make decisions faster than ever. And they're not empowered to do so because they don't have access to speaking to customers, to end users, to audiences and markets that really that change the yeah, that could really change the outcome of the things they're building. So we wanted to create something where you didn't have to rely on a consultancy or an agency or a researcher to get you answers, and you could self-serve that yourself and make quicker decisions at scale.
What would that process be prior to Ballpark? Like, how would an enterprise buyer or a department head or maybe an engineer for that matter kind of determine we need to actually do some research around a specific product or customer persona? Maybe walk the audience through what that journey is like before Ballpark, and then what is it
Yeah.
like with Ballpark today?
Yeah. So typically, what would happen is research might have been done in two or three different ways. The first way is that if you are lucky enough to have access to a research team, you would brief them. They would go off and fulfill that brief, and your brief would go into a queue of other briefs from around the business, and then you'll get the insights back at a time. Now, over time, research teams are often overwhelmed with requests. They have to prioritize. Of course, if a VP or head of wants some research, that's going to go to the top of the list because it becomes more urgent. And then people who aren't in that position often have to wait around longer. So that's one way. The other way is if you have the budget and a method to brief an external consultancy or an agency, that obviously costs a lot of money, that takes time, and that really isn't accessible to everyone in the team, right? It's exclusively available to certain people who have budget and authority to make a decision to spend 15 to 50K to get 50 to 100 responses back from people. And then the third way is a mishmash of maybe tools. You might mix up, a Google form, a Google Meet, or you might use maybe a dedicated tool for researchers, which is more complicated and not really something that the wider team has access to. So those are kind of the ways that people tended to work prior to Ballpark.
In the kind of Ballpark experience, maybe walk me through how quickly can a customer get started? And also, how do you sell to that? Maybe even before that, how do you sell to the customer? And then how quickly can the customer get started with Ballpark?
So the speed of getting up and running is part of sort of our core focus. So like our time to study creation is one of our key sort of experience focus areas. And the way we get people up and running is that we understand that currently 82% of our customers and the users on the platform are not researchers. So we have to meet them where they are in their skills. So we have a conversational AI experience where you talk to our AI agent to tell it the goals that you're trying to find out, or what problems are you trying to solve. Through describing those, it will piece together questions and tasks that it will then
Oh,
draft
wow.
for you so you can review. And that really helps that kind of a blank canvas problem, where you land into a tool. It's like, okay, how do I ask a question? I don't even know how to make this question, like not leading or biased. So all
And
of
by
the
the way, and
skills
by the
that,
way, Murat,
yeah, yeah,
just to interrupt really quickly,
yeah.
does that kind of imply that the typical user of Ballpark, which is also very exciting, is not native to research? You're making it easy to democratize research for someone coming into Ballpark and saying, hey, here's what here's what the AI can actually reference to lead you down a path to be successful in that research campaign that you're doing.
Absolutely. So I think our position and our kind of opinion and thesis is that the majority of decisions are made in a business by people who don't have access to research or are not researchers themselves. And they need to be empowered to make better decisions faster. So the best way to do that is to hold their hand through that process where in the past, you, you might have been very intimidated to put together a question because you have no idea if that question has been framed the right way, whether you're going to get the type of answer you want. And we want to take that off the table so you can just focus on taking actions on the answers and the
Hmm.
insights. So you're right. Yeah, we use AI as a way to almost be your co-pilot during the process from setting up to conducting to analyzing.
Hmm. Do you sit and more so from like an implementation standpoint, like what does a customer need to need from you, or what do you need from them for them to go live with the product?
So from sort of a setup perspective, you don't really need that much. The system itself, can onboard someone in less than 15 minutes. But of course, to set a customer up, we have to go through a process of infosec security and all of that. But really, the overhead of setup is very, very low. You don't have to install or get anything put onto your apps or website or integrate. We have integrations, but you can get started without those. And time to insights and time to getting decisions made is just really, really quick. So in the space of 5 minutes, you can have a study up, and in 20 to 30 minutes, you could have 50 responses back.
Wow. So can you maybe walk through a bit more of how the study or the survey or more so the panel that you have works? Because I think in our discussions that we've had previously, customers can bring their own panel and their own audience to Ballpark, but more so there's a very powerful, extension of the platform where you have a very large panel of users, panel of customers that you can actually test surveys on
Absolutely.
and test feedback on for research.
So it was really important to have both of those types of buyer covered. So we have a type of buyer who will come with their own audience. They have maybe a very specific type of user who is very hard to find in the market. They have a customer champions list or a CRM where they're like, look, we just need to send this out to them. We got that covered. However, there's also a large portion of the market who need access to people to take the research. And the reason why is because it's very difficult internally to maybe get a list of users across, compliance reasons, security and all of that. So getting 100 people from marketing to send the stuff out to, if you're not in marketing, can be a challenge. So we wanted to give them quick access to a pool of as many people as they need. So what we do is, aside from the software that conducts the research and analyzes it, we also have a what we call as a middleware layer that talks to multiple providers of audiences, and those audiences are funneled and unified into Ballpark. Lots of different panels around the world have different strengths and weaknesses. Some are great at video, some are great at surveys, some are great at English-speaking countries, some are great at Spanish-speaking, and so on. By being able to pick and choose the best of the best, we can funnel them into the platform and give our customers a great experience every time. The middleware layer also does really interesting things like picking the right people for the right study. It can
Hmm.
also detect quality in real time. So, for example, if you're giving one-word answers, if you are, not particularly engaging, we have the ability to ask the panels for a replacement programmatically, and then therefore keeping our customers not seeing any of that stuff and just getting the good quality results.
So this kind of leads me to, I think, a really interesting point in the Ballpark kind of product experience, which is got a platform that an individual user, or it sounds like multiple users can use. You've got a panel of, sounds like there's variable users that kind of sit on one end of the spectrum. How do you price this thing? Because it doesn't seem like it's that simple to price kind of those two off.
Yeah. So one thing we did when we were coming into market, we realized it's not just enough to innovate on products, you have to innovate on pricing as well. So the space had almost like a historical type of way of pricing, which was seat-based pricing. And a lot of the tools, because they were focused on researchers, they would often have very high price per seat because there's only a small amount of researchers in each business. So therefore, you need to charge a very high ticket price. However, our goal is not to sell to a small group of people to give everyone access across the business. So to democratize research, you need to take seat pricing off the table and let as many people in. And we switched it around and decided to price by usage. So we price in usage in two ways, which again was unique for the space. One was the amount of research studies you launch per year, and the second way was the amount of recruitment you need, which is a separate cost. We class that as transactional, and we have a credit-based system similar to something like Clay, where you buy credits and you use those credits up. And then we have our classic ARR, which is the software use side for the studies. The space had been littered with companies which were blending those costs. So you would never really understand what you were paying. So the transparency really helps in the sales process because it's almost like a la carte, you pick and choose what you want. We're not blending things in that you're not going to use. But also the removal of seat-based pricing means that 75% plus of our customers have more than 30 people on their workspace. And that's growing as well. So that means that we are, not just getting these small groups of people, they're sharing insights, they're being able to bring people in. And that really changes the virality of the product and the usage. So, if you get more people into the product, then your usage-based pricing on whether it's the data side and our case study side, that's going to grow by osmosis organically because more people are coming in and have access to the tool. If you shield them and gate them off, then of course, then no one's going to be able to do anything in your product.
Has there been any kind of surprises from a customer when it comes to your pricing? Whereas historically, a product like this in the market was charged per seat, you're inverting it on its head. I'm just curious if there's any lessons that you.
Yeah, I think there's people that are kind of almost trained on pricing after being in the space a while. So you come in and you're expecting seat-based pricing to be shared with you, and you're like, hey, we're only got this many people, but and their perceptions of value might be different from what you charge. But I think our job is to show that that from our opinion in our particular product, having a seat does not equal value, right? Where we price is if you're using it, then you're getting value, and we price based on that usage. The more you use it, the more you pay, and therefore we assume that you're getting value. So we try to communicate that in the process. We actually have a very well-refined trial process where people can see the value they get out of the product in that, and they can see the difference that it makes when you have a pricing model like ours. But some people do, they're just, been educated on seat-based pricing. So sometimes they might not even be the right fit. They might be like, hey, we've got two, we only need 2 seats. But then we're not actually the right, we're trying to democratize research. So therefore might not be the right tool for you. So sometimes it acts as a qualification of sorts as well. But for us, just paying for seats, and when people go on holiday or they log in twice a year and you're saying, can we reduce the seat count because of it? We want to get away from that. We know that research is fairly cyclical, and for different people, they have different velocities of research, and we want to take that off the table and just concentrate on what you're using, and it makes it a lot easier.
How does kind of the pricing of usage-based or kind of consumption-based models impact your ability, which I mean, this is a section of the conversation we'll talk through, but kind of resource allocation? How do you even plan kind of your costs appropriately of how you think about kind of where you apply kind of growth and SDRs and AEs going out relative to the cost of servicing the usage, and also just forecasting? What is that like sitting in your seat as CEO?
Yeah, so the way our usage-based pricing works is that you commit to a number of studies for the year. So we have a fixed price for that, right? So we know that you're committed and this is how much you're going to use. Now, of course, you go over that, you expand. But our job, and as customer success and products as well, our job is to make sure that you're using those studies that you've committed to for the year that you've purchased. And similar to how you maybe purchase bandwidth or anything else in other tools, like we want to make sure that you're getting value. If you're using those studies up, we know that you're getting value, and we track that on a monthly basis. And we have the ability to create customer health scores off the back of it. And actually, the process is fairly simple. If you purchase 120 projects, 120 studies for the year, we would expect that you're roughly using 10 a month, like nothing too crazy. And if you deviate from that, we step in at various points with different types of actions based on the deviation. If you are in the yellow, we might just need to run a bit of education with you on maybe send over a few materials, videos, and so on. If you're in the red, we might jump on a call and do a workshop with the team just to make sure they're upskilled on the tool. So it just depends on the team and the type of usage that's happening there. But what it does allow for us to do is we know at any given point in time how healthy the platform is. And we also know who is likely to expand mid-contract or end of contract based on their usage at any given time. So if you are, by let's say you do, as I mentioned, let's say you purchase 120 projects, we expect that by month 6 you've used 60% utilization at that point. But if you're at 80% utilization or 90%, we know, okay, you're probably due a conversation about what your plans are for the end of the contract and so on. So it really helps us understand at any given point in time what expansion might be like, what opportunities are in the pipe, and it's really helpful.
Yeah. How do you, slightly different topic, similar resource allocation, but how do you kind of navigate with the company and your team pushing out experiments and trying new things around Ballpark, the product, but also other ways that you feel like research kind of as a platform? And as you kind of democratize this as the narrative and the mission that you have within Ballpark, how do you actually make that more accessible through experimentation? And what's the feedback or what's the direction that you're kind of giving your employees when they're experimenting? Not on just that, but how do they also bring in that shared knowledge of their experiments and pass along to the entire company?
Yeah, so we have a pretty strong culture of experimentation. We love feature flags, and tools like Launch Darkly, for example, they really allow you to push as many things as you want into the platform and get feedback straight away. We tend to push features and flag them over creating very long drawn out designs and prototypes. We're just like, look, we can build it, ship it, and just like give it to 10% of people, ask what they feel, ask what their feelings are about it. And we also, of course, do a lot of research with our own tool. But how we come about those, I think sometimes you have a bigger idea of where you want the platform to go, and getting there isn't going to be achievable, straight away. So you have to break it down into pieces. And sometimes what we do is we have the way we kind of structure things is V1, V2, V3, V4, and we break it down into versions, and each version will progressively get to what we class as launchable. But then, that journey might take sometimes a few weeks, a few months, or even longer. And the goal is that we're incrementally getting to this like major feature rather than do a 6-month, 7-month, 8-month build out and go like big bang. And so we stopped doing that. Like, I think that's how we used to think in the past. But now we realized with working closely with all the customers, we have the ability to not only rapidly get feedback and iterate, but also have advocates very early for what we're building and champions across the business and people that push it harder and, want to be involved. And the more you involve customers and, the outcome of the product, I think the more they become partners with you. So slightly off topic, but we do have Slack channels with every single customer on the enterprise plan.
Interesting.
Which is,
okay.
Yeah, and Teams channels. So we almost have no support tickets that come in. They all talk to us through Slack and Teams. So we've got a very tight bond with all of our customers. We respond to stuff like almost in real time across the team. So in any channel might be product manager, developer, customer success, even sales. And we make sure that, their feature requests are being heard. We have integrations in those Slack channels. We can easily just push a suggestion into our kind of product roadmap, and so on. So we try to kind of make sure this is a really close-knit relationship with some of the biggest companies in the world. These are from Fortune 500 companies to scale ups and companies who have on the AI side blowing up and stuff. And we just make sure that we're listening to every point where they can make and improving that way. And that really helps with feature development. Any single feature will be in one of those Slack channels way before it goes into public release. And we'll just put a message in, hey, does anyone interested in trying out this new feature? You get a bunch of emojis, hands up, and we just feature flag it for them.
Why do you think, like, what you're describing in terms of having a separate communications or community, right, for each of your customers, where you're basically, one of the terms that kind of has been used almost every single conversation, this concept of like a forward deployed engineer. You're actually sitting inside the business and you understand what's happening. Why don't you think this is more prevalent inside of kind of enterprise software companies? Because I think the enterprise software model, maybe this is pre-AI, but it was kind of predicated upon like it almost felt like a factory. You kind of have a large sales team that goes out, sells and qualifies the product. Then they onboard the customer. Once the customer's onboarded, then you have this massive call center or account management team, and you're actually routing phones back and forth. Like, why don't you think more of what you're doing? Why is this more applicable? And why is this happening more kind of in the environment?
So I think when I think about maybe incumbents or legacy platforms, they get to a certain scale where I think they lose, or they lose that customer led nature. Like I think it's at a certain size and a certain scale, you just they're not going to approach customer relations in the same way that a newcomer would come in and do it. And I think we want to it's just become the default practice of doing that here, and it's part of our culture. So it's we wouldn't like not doing it is weird for us at this stage. But I think it just comes down to maybe no one there thinking it's even possible, or no one even thinking that level of customer contact is even uh, beneficial for them, because you start bringing in a ticketing system. You want to manage as many tickets as
Mm-hmm.
possible at scale, and these one-on-one conversations aren't in your interest, or these one-to-many conversations inside the channels. But what these channels do, and what this kind of close connection does, is whenever you talk to a customer, the whole company or the whole team sees it in these Slack channels. Whether it's a suggestion, an improvement, a feature release, we can put it into this channel. We hit our entire uh, customer base on that particular company, and that's what's really really important. And they can passively ingest it. We know they're going to see it, versus your emails or whatever that might get unsubscribed or just go in and not be read. We put in there, we leave updates, we let them engage, and we meet them where they are in this, and that's important as well. The same way with a product meets people where they are in their skills, we want to meet people where they are in the way they want customer support. And it's not possible for every company, of course, because it's very complicated in some companies to set up a channel. But for I'd say about 70% of all of our customers
It's
have one of these
amazing.
channels across Teams or Slack, and it's been great. And yeah, I think just not to lose touch with your customer, and as a newcomer coming in, I recently kind of put this message out, which was this kind of old advertising kind of campaign, I think from Hertz, or rent a car, one Hertz, which is a car rental place. And then their messaging was, we're number two, so we try harder. And that was how
Yep.
they actually became, one of the most popular car rental brands. And it's a similar thing for us. Like we know we're not number one, but we're gonna make sure we follow up every lead. We're gonna chase every feature request. We're gonna anything that you tell us, we're gonna follow up and give you an update on where that is in
Yep.
the development process or whatever. So all of that stuff's really important. One of the things that we kept hearing prior to starting Ballpark was customer support sucks across the legacy sort of incumbent research tools who are sort of focused on research. So we're like, okay, well, let's not do that. We should never lose a deal because of customer experience. Like that should never ever happen in the business. It cannot happen. So that is number one priority for us. Like you will not. I never want to get something coming through that says, "Yeah, we're leaving you because your support." That's never going to happen. So that's key for us, and that's how we run our customer base.
It's amazing. Murat, I learned so much in this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time today to
My
walk us
pleasure.
through
Thank you for
this.
having me.
Final question for you. For folks who want to learn more about Ballpark or get in touch with you, what's the best contact?
So our website is ballparkhq.com, and you'll be able to find out more about what we do there. You'll be able to get in touch with us there if you're interested in getting a demo and trying out Ballpark for your team. And we've just released some incredible features which really automate a lot of the research process, from setting up to analyzing insights, and would love to show you more.
Thanks so much, Murat.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dave.